Okay, we did it. We survived 2020. I mean, we survived 2020, but how will indie filmmakers survive in 2021? Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. If you're like me, you're probably happy that 2020 is over. It's done with. We did it. We're here. And 2021 is ahead of us. And now, what do we do? How do indie filmmakers survive? How do they continue to thrive in these, as the corporations like to say, these challenging times? I have Joshua A. Friedman here today on the Film Threat Podcast. Joshua, how you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you, Chris?
Good to see you, man. You are a filmmaker. Who has worked on, go ahead, brag about your resume just for a little bit, so have some context, people know who you are and what you do.
I started in this business when I was a kid. 22 years old, I was a production assistant on Law and Order, worked my way up through the Directors Guild, literally did 600 days as a PA, and on the show Person of Interest here in New York, I joined the Guild. Started working as an AD, then a producer, then I wrote a book. So we teach people how to be production assistants, and now I'm a tech entrepreneur.
Sweet. Well, your publicist reached out to me, the amazing Jessica, and she sent me this thing about this app, Crew Me Up, and which I think is a really good idea. And just because as a filmmaker myself, I find it daunting to like, okay, I want to do a shoot in Nashville. I'm not going to go to Nashville, right? But I need to hire a local crew to shoot an interview in which I'll interview this person probably over a Zoom on a computer because I'm not going to travel at this moment. So your app, if I understand it correctly, allows me to find a crew wherever and just hire them.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have a database of filmmakers nationwide, and you would just go on, look for what you need, whether that's a sound guy or a camera operator, message them, hire them directly through the app, see their availability. And then you're good to go.
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's useful just because my method before this was basically just to go on Facebook and say, does anybody know a camera person and a sound person in North Carolina? I just need to hire someone to do a one-day shoot. But I think that this kind of innovation and tools like this are why I believe that indie film will thrive and, in fact, become even more important going forward as movie theaters are still not open all across the country, right? Mm-hmm. That is still an issue. So you've got empty theaters. Who knows where the theatrical business is going to be as a revenue stream for big studios? Because are you going to see these billion-dollar movies? That would be a question for you. Is that you worked on big productions? I don't know that, say, a big studio like, well, I guess there's only one, Disney, the one studio left that's going to say, look, we're going to spend $400 million on a movie. We're hoping to, double our money at the box office, make a movie that makes $1 billion. I don't think there's going to be $1 billion movie for a long time. Because when are we going to see movie theaters at full capacity? Probably not until 2022 at best. Do you have some insights on this?
I don't. I can tell you what I see trend-wise. Oh God. I lost my train of thought. It was in the news this morning.
Okay.
Live streaming for theater. So SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity have been going back and forth because theater shut down and films just now coming back. Like, who has access to the actors and what contract are they under when you're filming a live stage play for, a pre-recorded audience?
Oh, wow. So theater will survive effectively by live streaming into the film. Wow. Okay. Well, and I will say this, I'm going to admit, I did go to see Les Mis at the movie theater. There's a filmed version of the production. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those Fathom events things. I love Fathom events. They do this thing where they play a piece of content in a theater for one day, and then you just get to go see it. I actually believe that because we're going to see fewer tentpole films going forward, I just think that fewer big tentpole movies. I mean, Wonder Woman, came out on HBO Max, right? Okay. Right. Maybe it should have just come out on HBO Max. But it did open in whatever theaters were available and on HBO Max. I still think the jury is out on whether that kind of experiment will succeed. I know that like Tenet did underperformed dramatically. It was supposed to be a huge, and it didn't open up theaters. I just want to see where things are going for indie filmmakers. Your tool, the Crew Me Up app, which is available like everywhere.
Right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's one tool, but what are other tools now that you're seeing in terms of, I mean, I'm hearing crazy things where I'm talking to friends that are working on big productions and they get tested for COVID nearly hourly.
Oh, it's insane. So based on the new protocols, we're doing at least 3 times a week and once a week past that, depending on what zone you're in. So imagine there's 85 people on the crew and we're sectioned off into zones A, zone B, and zone C. Zone A is anybody that comes into the contact with the cast. Zone B is people that are in the periphery of the set or within the footprint, and working with the cast, but with PPE on. Wow. And then Zone C is everybody like The Office, people that don't actually come to set but have interactions with the people working there. So everybody has a different testing schedule, and that's been constant. You know, it's adding 20% to the bottom line in most budgets.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's like it's got to be quite a hit for indie productions. You know, I've heard some people are doing, some friends of mine, actually a mutual friend of ours, Dan Mervish, did a little rogue production, but they quarantined. You know, that was their method, was to quarantine before
Did he tell you I was there?
What's that?
Did he tell you I was there?
Oh, he did not tell me that you were there. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I was the second AD when they came back up post-COVID, so I was part of that experiment.
How did that go? Can you? I mean, I'm just really curious. Like, I think the studios, they can afford it, right? Mm-hmm. They can afford 5 COVID tests a day. I had a friend who did like a bit part on one of the SVU shows or CSI, whatever those shows are. I don't watch them, but a friend of mine is an actor and was on one of those shows, and he said that like they would between takes mask up and shield, and then take them off and then do the scene. And I mean, it's really kind of just like over the top. But how does an indie production afford to do this, or, you know, keep everyone safe and still get the job done? Right.
You've got to be smart and you've got to be efficient. So what Dan did, they kept everything down. The entire crew plus cast was 25 or less. We had 18 crew members. They were tested before they came up to work. Once they traveled after that test, they quarantined in their motel rooms until we got a negative result. And then once we got that result, then everybody slowly came back to work. And 48 hours later, they had to get tested again, so that on day 3, we had a negative result and they could shoot into days 3 and 4.
Wow. So pretty much the same as Kim Kardashian's birthday party. Is that like how that, didn't she have a birthday party? I saw that trending on Twitter. I can't, you know what? I don't pay attention to her. I'm just saying it was trending on Twitter and I noticed everyone, I guess, quarantined and took a test. So it's similar to that, basically.
Exactly.
This sounds like a crazy, weird question to ask. How do you get a COVID? How do you get, like, for a production, where and how do I get a bunch of COVID tests? So let's say I'm putting together a production. Where do I get those tests to make sure, you know, that everyone on my crew, and I can do multiple tests and then get those either rapid results or whatnot? I'm told there's going to be, you're going to be able to go to CVS and be able to get like a pack of tests.
An at-home kit?
Yeah, an at-home kit. Like that's coming. But what do you do on a production? How does that work?
So first off, production has to be in control. I love that they'll be able to get an at-home kit, but we can't verify that it hasn't been tampered with.
Right.
So it's got to be run through us right now. The first thing we do is call a hospital. So for Dan's movie, 18 and a half the crew went to Mount Sinai here in New York City, and the other half went to a hospital up where we were shooting in Greenport, Long Island. So that was step 1. And then here at Mount Sinai, we all went inside the building. They had all their protocols and lanes. Up at Greenport, it was a drive-through. So literally, we rolled down the window, stuck our noses out, and they swabbed.
As simple as that. How much is the test?
It ranges. It depends on how what kind of turnaround you need. But I'm hearing anywhere from $135 per test up to $350 and above.
Yeah, that's there you go. wow, a couple of tests and you're already like, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you, oh God, see, now I got to talk to Dan, like how he was able to incur those costs. That's just insane. I know he did like another crowdfunding raise just to get this movie
Film, yeah.
across the finish line. But I just look, obviously I'm on team indie film. I want to see indie film thrive and survive, in spite of the pandemic. And I think that I interviewed a guy earlier last year, John Garcia, who did a film called Love in Dangerous Times. There's like, the cast is like 4 or 5 people on camera. He had limited production behind the scenes, and the movie is set during the pandemic, so people wear masks in the movie. So I think that presents an interesting challenge to writers. I've had conversations with screenwriters, and I'm curious about your thoughts about this. Is they're all thinking in their head, okay, when are we setting this movie and or television show? Is it before times? Is it after the pandemic's over? And do we even acknowledge it because it so dramatically changed our lives, like the snap in, Avengers Endgame? Right. Or do you set it during it and then just like the cast just wears masks? What are you hearing, and what are some of those challenges for writers?
So writers are trying to pare down less actors, less background, less action, and anything where they can keep socially distanced. But my opinion is you can't. Oh. He's been sleeping.
Okay, not the first dog we've had on the Film Threat podcast, just so you know. There have been several that pop up every once in a while.
Yeah, we tried to keep him down.
But like, I guess that's just it's a question you have to ask before you sit in front of that laptop to write, is when is this? I think it's easier if it's a period film. I think that question's answered for you. But as you pointed out, fewer casts, or like in the case of the horror film, did you see this horror film called Host?
I haven't.
Okay, it's on Shudder, and I will say this: watch that movie with the lights off and crank the sound a little bit. It's a horror film that takes place over the course of a Zoom call, and there's a seance that happens. I'm not going to give up any spoilers, but it delivers. It's effing scary, but it takes place as long as a Zoom call would take place before they start charging you.
Yeah, 40 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just over 40-minute movie. And it's not like a full 90-minute film. It's awesome. But they just sort of wrote that in, like, that's how they made it, right? It was just like they made it as a Zoom call, which I thought was great, in real time, which I think is just one way of solving it. But are you hearing like other types of things that writers are challenged with?
That's it for now. Because the productions that I work on, they do have the budgets, and they're thinking about how to stretch that. So what they've done is pared down and then created those barriers, whether that's distancing, whether that's scheduling, or whether that's PPE.
Right. Well, I really think that the thing when it comes to indie film, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, the deck is stacked against you anyways, right? Like, as an indie filmmaker, you're already going in, I've only got this much money, I've got this much time. So the deck is already stacked against you. I think it's important just to be innovative in your approaches to be able to keep everyone safe, but also to continue to make films, whether you weave it into the story or not. I appreciate your Crew Me Up app, because I'm working on a couple of documentaries at the moment, actually, and I know it's going to come in handy because we want to shoot in places where I don't know how to get to people other than post on Facebook. Do you know anyone?
List. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. So I really wanted to do this podcast, one, to sort of catch up with you and what you're doing, but also just to let the filmmakers who listen and or watch the podcast to know that there are all these resources. And I think if the one thing that indie filmmakers are really good at, it's being creative with no money.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can actually tell you, I just got hired for a feature that shoots in February. So I'm prepping right now, breaking down the schedule of the scripts. It's going to be about a $280,000 budget. 6-7 characters, but they're shooting in Erie, Pennsylvania. So this will be another quarantine situation. Crew size has gone up now, so we'll be above 25, but not by much. And I'll let you know how that one goes.
Well, let me know how it goes, but any sort of parting words of advice other than download your app, which I, which I would recommend if you're an indie filmmaker, you need resources. It's in one of my folders, my filmmaking folders on my phone. But other than that, is there any sort of other advice? I mean, you worked on bigger productions, you worked on smaller productions. What parting advice would you give filmmakers?
There's so much advice. My favorite thing to do is teach on this one.
Good, teach. Okay, please. We got the time.
Where do you want to start? So I started as a PA. I became an AD. I became a producer, and at each level, somebody gave me a different piece of advice that really moved the needle for that one. So I'd say as a production assistant, my first key PA on Law and Order, he says you earn your money with your legs and your lungs. So walk fast and talk loud. Wow. Okay, good. That was one of the easiest ones. Then as an assistant director, I had a DP pull me aside after I had messed up horribly. Like the entire day got away from me. I had Louis Guzman on set. We were 3 hours behind. We missed 2 scenes. And he goes, listen, man, rehearsals. Like, I need you to get into a schedule or an order where we go block, light, rehearse, shoot. And so the next day we came in, we blocked it with the actors. I stepped them away. We lit with the crew. We brought them back for a rehearsal so everybody could see it with camera, and we shot. And all of a sudden, things just started moving. And then when I became a producer, I did a movie with a producer named Tanny Cohen. And she turned to me one day. She goes, listen, that's it. Everybody's got a story to tell. Just listen.
Wow. Wow. That is, these are really good. I feel like these pieces of advice could be t-shirts. You could do a line of t-shirts in addition to your app. Which I think would be really helpful. Joshua Friedman, thank you so much for joining us on the Film Threat podcast. And here's another piece of advice. Support our sponsor, Storyblocks. Go to storyblocks.com/filmthreat. If you're a creator, if you're a filmmaker at any level, it's a great source for tools, million+ clips, stock footage clips. You subscribe to this service. I've used it. We use it at Film Threat all the time. That's how I discovered this sponsor. So storyblocks.com/filmthreat. That helps us. Josh, dude, like, great catching up and great talking to you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
All right. Happy 2021.
Yeah.